On. Hey guys, this is Dardamos with Dardamos Dominions, and I have a special guest star today, JoBrandon. Say hi, Joe.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Oh, so Joe, you haven't actually seen any of this, any of the episodes so far, have you?
I am vaguely aware you have a YouTube channel.
Ah, okay. So, uh, just as a fresh idea, Vanheim has gone to war with Ashdod and has beaten Scale Ashdod.
Mm-hmm.
So he says he's diplomatically, Vanheim is saying he's diplomatically is a bad spot. None of my neighbors are at war. And what's interesting, dude, is that there's literally a turn that's going to be coming up eventually that there are two battles in the entire turn. And I can see everything.
Mm. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Like, how aggressive are you in these games? Like, do you ever have, lulls, or do you think there's lulls in the world, or is this unusual?
This is actually very interesting. I personally believe that being very aggressive is very advantageous, but I'm actually currently in a game. It was originally an 8-player Blitz game, but we're currently in a 4-way Cold War with me, Ubar, Pan, and a Hinam. It's probably going to end up with the Hinam attacking, but like realistically, Cold Wars and stuff like that should be rare because the longer you're sitting out, the more others are gaining advantage. A Cold War is theoretically fine if there is no one else gaining advantage.
Now, when you say that Cold Wars rarely happen, when you have newer players, is this a sign of newer players? Or do you think that it might be some nerves all these guys know that we're recording. Do you think it's nerves? Why do you think it is that there are so few? I mean, it's turn 18 and there's been one war.
Turn 18 and one war is indeed very rare. I do think that is more of a matter of newer players. You often see with the more experienced players that they have a plan for what they're going to do in the first 15 to 20 turns, and it usually involves war. One of the better players I know, you probably know him also, Arco, pretty much always eliminates someone within the first 20 turns.
Yeah, we normally aim for that too. You need to. But when you're let's move on to that because you're going into Arco. When he's picking a target and when you're picking a target, who are you looking for? Are you looking for a matchup or are you looking for a player?
I generally, so when you're say looking for a player, you mean looking for a specific player that I think is either weak or would put up a good fight, something like that.
Let's say that
So
you've got two neighbors. Okay, theoretically you've only got two neighbors, and one of them is Sakane or Lucid or Arco, and the other one is a player that is, little known, very little known, not the greatest, strongest player, but the matchup is worse versus the new player, or you might have a better matchup versus the veteran player. Which direction do you go in that time?
that is very interesting. One second. So depending on how lopsided the matchup is, it of course changes. If I'm playing, I don't know, a Marverni that focuses on enchanted weapons or the Awakened Tattoos and body ethereal castings in my first war, then obviously I'm not going to go after someone with magic weapons, pretty much no matter who the person is. But if it's only a slight favor, I might just try and, well, it also depends on the person who I'm fighting. If I'm considering someone like Arco, he is very aggressive, and I need to take him out quickly because I know that he can kill players faster than I can. That's just his skill as a player. But if I'm facing someone like, say, Sakwane, he's like a bit better at the long game. Well, that's more where his specialty lies. So I might be a little bit less inclined to worry about him snowballing early.
It's really interesting that you say that too, because I see both players as very good, but I see what you're saying in both. Where Sakane is a very slow, methodical player. I think that a lot of people who watch are on Lucid's channel and they've seen Sakane has played. He was Tianchi in the Atlantis game, and what other games has he been in on Lucid's channel?
In Black Swan, he was Marverni.
Is Merverni, okay. That's correct. And that was the one where you were Zabalva.
Correct.
And Arco just won the tournament, correct?
If I don't misremember, that is completely correct. He has also had a habit of murdering someone within the first 20 turns. That wasn't an exaggeration. Every game I know of him being in, he has killed someone in the first 20.
He killed me once in what was it, like 14 turns? What he did is he jumped, I went dormant, and had I gotten my Pretender out on turn 12, I would have won that war because I had a regen bless on Pan. But because he was able to do it before, oh my goodness, like he just super aggressive. He knows and it's really interesting because if you talk to him, he seems to know what he's talking about.
Oh yeah.
But somehow people don't coalition against him, which is really, and same thing with Lucid and Sakane and a lot of the good players, they don't coalition these guys. Why is that?
I think in part, well, a lot of people, of course, aren't very familiar with these players. I've played with Sakane quite a few times now. I've heard of Arco, although I've never had the pleasure of playing him beyond I think one time that I was murdered by him playing Abyssia, but that's a whole other game. But a lot of people just aren't very familiar. I think it might change with Arco soon, but you also have to keep in mind people are apprehensive. A coalition also puts you in danger because you have to rely on other people, and that is a very scary thing.
So you think that one of the problems is that you'll have one player that goes in, and then the other guy will be like, okay, now, Lucid or Arco is dealing with him, and I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you're going into a coalition against, say, Arco with two people, you are both going to bleed. That is just going to happen. Arco will make you bleed. And some people want out of that. They will tap out, and then you are the guy facing a 1v1 against Arco.
So let's move into the actual turn itself.
Yeah, of course.
So Vanheim is doing a boring raid. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the ones that are actually interesting fights, and we're just going to burn through the rest. Okay, So this is an interesting fight. In last turn, Ulm hit this, so he actually knows what's there. And these are Eternal Knights. Now, have you actually fought against these at all?
I have fought against them in an Utgard game. If I remember correctly, they are a type of special PD that only pop up on a really good magic site.
That is correct. And what's interesting about these guys that I didn't catch the first time is that their damage is armor piercing twice.
Yup.
And, I guess if you're defense, it's okay, but I mean, like, that's gonna rip these guys to shreds. Now, I want you to look at this, and I want you to come up with an Ulmish force that would be better than this, because this did not work. Do you think it needs more money? Do you think it needs a different script? Do you think it needs different troops? What's your thoughts on that?
Now, if I was just looking at an early game Ulm, all I had was access to me was infantry, is I might try this out with troops that could repel. I'm not entirely sure what the defense or morale of the Eternal Knights is. Obviously, if they have 30 morale or something, then that's a no-go.
Let me go check that real quick, and I can pull up what the Eternal Knights are. Okay.
They have 30 morale. Repelling is a no-go. That's annoying. They are now down to only 5 Eternal Knights, so you can surround them. In which case, once again, if you want to do this fast, just grab the flails and try to beat them beforehand. You could also try something with crossbows, but you do have to worry about the Eternal Knight's regeneration. So you would need either Iron Darts or Iron Blizzard or an obscene amount of crossbows.
Now it's turn 18. What should Ulm's magic be looking like right now?
Turn 18, he's going to want like his preliminary battle magic. So you're looking at Legions of Steel and Strength for Giants, both preferably. Just one might be fine, might be acceptable. It really depends on how much you focus on the research.
Now let's actually watch his scripting. And I think that I've seen something right here that looks like it was a mistake. How would you have scripted this differently?
So, assuming I knew exactly what was in this province, right? How it would move.
Absolutely. He bumped last turn and lost.
Now this is interesting. Obviously, the end goal is make sure the opponent's troops are split, make sure yours aren't, and preferably you want to surround those Eternal Knights. You want them dead as soon as possible. Now, there is a problem here, which is where I am actually not all that well versed in scripting, but you would most likely try to put your own troops further back to try and draw the knights out, put them all, of course, on hold and attack. So you can beat up the knights first, and then hopefully your guys will move as a clump forward. If you have magic, use it right here. If you have like a cast of Legions of Steel, cast of Strength of Giants, you use it now, because these Eternal Giants are going to be a problem. It also helps with beating up the knights.
What's really interesting is watch how long it takes them to actually kill these knights. Like, they just don't die until they get surrounded. And what I'm curious is, why didn't he do like an attack cavalry, because that would have surrounded, but you might be right on the fact that he was just trying to surround these Eternal Knights. The thing is, well, they get murdered by
there's too much infantry for that.
I think
you can't surround the Eternal Knights because there's still too much infantry.
What's really interesting about this, if this was a player's army and you see this, I see something pops out right away that there's a fatal flaw in this.
There's only one commander.
There you go. That's, and this is what I see on it. And if you want to see something funny, there he is back here, all the way in the back.
Oh, I barely even noticed that. Yeah, in that case, definitely you try to first distract the front line with some normal infantry. It doesn't matter if they can't kill it, and then have a small cavalry of like two or even three knights is probably enough to kill the commander.
I think they might even be able to pull it with a single knight commander. Maybe. I would still add, I'd add a couple more knights just to...
If you take a single knight commander and give him a great sort of sharpness, I would agree.
Yeah, exactly. So really kind of interesting fight on this. And what's interesting is that it's very obvious that this player hasn't seen this indie type before. When you come up against an indie type that you haven't seen before, and of course it's going to be live because that's the only time that you get this. What do you do in that instance?
So there aren't many types of indies I think I haven't seen. It's usually, how do I say this? Of course, this is a very variable question. You have many different types of indies. You have many different types of nations. Some nations can just bulldoze through even a Windmaster province or the Air Mage province. Because they have something to deal with the elemental, say magic weapons or something, and they also have a bunch of resists, etc., etc. But if you're looking at, say, for example, trolls are a pretty rare indie type, and let's say I'm dealing with them as who am I supposed again?
I guess we'll pretend like you're Ulm, and let's say that you come across something unusual, like let's say there's a province with some troll-looking guys with some armor, and the commander is a N3 E2 with a strange set of gear. How do you know whether you should actually attack that or not?
So there's a certain amount of... So trolls you can just sort of fight. They're not actually amazing troops unless they have good armor, like you said. So if they're well-armored trolls, that might be a problem. But they get slapped fairly quickly. The nature mage might be more of a problem. I think that indie mages can cast up to level 7 in a research, and if it's a nature tree, you said, you could be casting Creeping Doom, which is annoying, to say the least.
Now, do you... Because, I mean, that's the reason I put the armor in there, was that question mark. Can I take it, or can I not? I don't know. Do you test it live? I mean, do you just throw troops in there? Do you avoid it? At what point do you send an army in to make sure that you're...
Is this a blitz or a game where I have like 24 hours?
You got 24 hours, dude.
In that case, if I really don't know, I'll throw up a test game. Just pull up Dardamosis arena map, maybe load up the debug mods, make a province, and just churn out, say, 40 of whatever my infantry of choice is, and see if that works.
Yeah, that's Das Tactic, DASTACTIC. He's got his arena mod, and that's, I mean, I love it. I think I've got a video up where I go through, and that's my style. But what's really funny, dude, and this is why I'm really glad you're joining us today, is that, like, I literally asked that question to 3 other guys, in a video that had problems, and they all said that they would just avoid it. Or that they would try to figure it out, or just try to logic it out. I mean, Sakane, I think, said he tried to figure out, because he kind of has got a good feeling of whether he'll win or not. Whereas, a couple of the other guys are just like, just avoid it.
Yeah.
Me, I like your style. That's more what I do. I get a test game up. I'm like, don't leave my games up to chance or up to my knowledge, because I'm not.
It works to a certain degree. Obviously, it works for indies because they're very predictable. But once you're going into mid to late game wars, you just cannot predict what's happening anymore. Besides the fact that it would take way too long to set up the opponent's army.
Oh, it always does. I'll give you that. I'm probably one of the people that tests more than anybody else in this game, because I'm so, I mean, I'm the one who during these shows are asking the questions, because I don't know. A lot of this Dominion stuff, I test and I test and I test. And how much do you test come mid or late game? Do you ever test battles?
Mid or late game, I will only test in very specific scenarios, which is usually anti-thugs. So counter-thugs, I should say. So thugs that are specifically used to defeat super combatants, I will test. But big army fights just have too many variables. You have to rely on your intuition at that point. That's also one of the reasons that sometimes it's best to try and quote-unquote train your intuition. There's ways to do that while still testing. You could, for example, before testing, you can think, okay, what's the minimum amount with which I can beat this? And then you test that. You don't just throw numbers at it. It's something you need to train because it is a very important skill. Even if you were to test every single fight that you think you might take, a better intuition will also help you prepare armies that will in general be better able to deal with the things that you think the opponent might be using.
What's funny, dude, is that you say that mid to late game there's too many variables. And what's interesting, I'm in a game right now where I'm playing as Utgard, and I've tested probably a battle every 2 or 3 turns. I'm playing against Nosy. And the first couple of battles, and still, I mean, to this point, I'm in with a couple of players that are a little bit newish, and I can go in and I can test those games, and I mean, every single time it's exactly the same as the test battle. There's nothing incredibly new. There's occasionally a problem, and I mean, I think a couple of the tests went differently, but most of them are just fine. And then I get in a battle with Nosy, and every fracking time, dude, he throws some sort of thing that I didn't test. But what's interesting then is I go to Coconut, who's my partner, who I co-op with, and he'll tell me, "Oh no, I saw his gems, I saw his magic, this is what he's gonna do." And so what I do first, I go to Coconut, who's a freaking savant at this game, and I mean he foresees things, and then I'm able to test that, and because of that, we're able to win. Well, I mean, some of the battles. It's nosy. we're not gonna win them all.
Yeah, that is one of the things. Like, that's also partially what I said earlier. There is intuition you need to build. Like, it sounds like Coconut has fairly good intuition about these kinds of things. You can combine that to a degree, indeed, with testing the actual battles. That might be, if you want to guarantee like the most chance of survival, having both a good intuition and the willingness to test all those battles. I don't have the latter. I'm very sorry, but late game turns already take me like 2 hours because I'm very slow. But that would get you like very good win rates.
What's really interesting, dude, is you say that, and that's one of the reasons why I like playing co-op. In fact, the only game I play right now, I play with Coconut, and he's got that intuition, and I've got the love of, like, I love testing, dude. I'd rather just do that the whole time. I'd love a whole episode of just testing this battle with 16 different ways of doing, different things. And that's what I love about Dominions, is the testing. And because we both have the skill that the other is lacking, we work very well together, and we win a lot. But I think that individually I would not win as much.
Out of curiosity, are you still like in the weird win rate percentage where you've won pretty much all your Disciple games, but like have maybe 0 to 1 wins of single player games or free-for-all games?
With Coconut and I, we have played something like 13 games together, and we have won 13 games together. We have never lost a game. By myself, I get bored, and I make 1 or 2 stupid mistakes. And what's funny is that Coconut catches those 1 or 2 mistakes, and because of those 1 or 2 mistakes, it turns me from a losing game to a winning game. And so, like I said, like it works very well together. Now, I've played with other players, and it's not that they're worse. It's not that they're bad. It's not that I'm, but they don't catch the mistakes that Coconut does. And so it's just this weird synergy that you're talking about where like you've got the intuition and you've got the testing, and for some reason the two of us work very well together. Whereas, it's not that the other guys, I mean, I've won with other people. I mean, the EA Relay game is just amazing where I was playing with Karagraph. Do you know him?
Vaguely aware.
And we do very well together. And I mean, the game is still ongoing, and I've kind of, because of life, I've kind of given it to him. But I mean, we've almost won as EA Relay, which is amazing. So
in this case, you're talking about a free-for-all with 2 players controlling 1 nation?
2 players controlling 1 nation, yep. And
that's a trend that I've only started seeing from you. It started spreading a bit, but first time I saw it was with you.
It's kind of the other guys. I think that all of them have just given up. I mean, heck, I gave it up. I played with Grippa, who's the he's playing Citizen here, and even that one, like I think I even said during I got tilted during a fight, and I just said, this one's yours if you don't mind. If you want me to stay with it, I can. But he finished it off and was amazing. So, but moving on. I'm sorry, dude, because I'm supposed to be the interrupter, and here I am, the one rambling. Hey, Dardamos, let's move on to the next one.
It's fine. My entire conversation style is rambling, so I'm used to it.
Dude, we never finish more than 1 turn in any of these episodes. It's just like, and now for turn 3. I hope you enjoyed the 30-minute turn 2 where we looked at independence.
Lovely, isn't it?
I think the last episode, the one before this one, we argued about the difference between Marios and Ichthyades and which one would win in a battle.
Yeah.
But moving on, before we go into that, what's interesting about this battle, and like here you see that he didn't have the knowledge, he doesn't have the experience, and he just threw. He did the spaghetti method. Do you ever have spaghetti and like you're done with the spaghetti, you take it out and you throw it on the wall, and if it sticks, it's finished. Well, that's kind of what he does. Yeah. He threw the spaghetti at the wall and it bounced. It freaking bounced off.
That's a way of putting it.
Have you done that before?
I have lost a Pretender God to these very independents.
Okay. We do that, by the way.
I am not even kidding you.
The teaching style, that's what we talk about with teaching styles. You just throw spaghetti at the kids, and you hope that something sticks.
Interesting way of putting it.
I
No, I have been more. I am being more careful with expansion now than I was in the past.
Well, what's interesting is you say that, but then look at this. He goes into a province with literally 10 infantry. And does a great job of it.
Yeah, but that's because I think this player knows how Ulmush expansion works. He just couldn't work out how it worked with the Eternal Knights. Because it is completely correct that 10 infantry can easily beat this.
And I like the contrast between the two fights, because in the first fight, we're being very critical of what he did.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that was a critical as in like this player's a bad player.
Yeah.
It was he didn't understand it, correct?
Yeah, I think this player knows how Ulmush expansion works. He practiced it. He knows he needs very few infantry to deal with most types of independence. But he just didn't expect this. And he could have prepared for it better, like I said earlier with the arena map, but he just didn't.
Okay, moving on to the next fight. Okay, so we went over this last time, and we looked at this fight this throne. He pinged his throne last turn, and lots of fire. Do you know this throne very well?
I know it fairly well.
Okay.
I fought it before and realized I'd forgotten to bless my fire-resistant troops, so they didn't have fire resistance before the fire snakes came in, but that's a whole other mistake.
Okay, so here's the bless real quick, and I'll let you see, and I'll ask you some. Can you see what it is?
I can see what it is.
Okay. Is this a good force? Should he have brought more? Should he have brought less? Should he have waited for magic? What's your thought on this?
I'm not saying he should have brought less, but he could have, totally. He could have killed this throne with half this number of white centaurs.
Okay,
this throne poses absolutely no problem to that amount of white centaurs.
Now, this is where it gets interesting, because he does take severe losses up here.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get through the end. I'm hoping somebody's run away. Okay, so he does win, but as you can see, he lost about half his centaurs.
That's surprising to me.
Okay. And I believe this... Okay, so you said now you got it. Okay, good. Now I want you to go over why is it that he lost so many of the guys to this?
So there's this thing with poison, which is that people don't often realize it is a lot of armor negating damage. The amount of poison damage is way higher than similar sources of armor negating damage, because of it, of course, it has the downside of being a damage over time. But if you don't care that your troops die after they bit your opponent, then it's just 15 armor negating damage.
Can you go over what armor negating means? What does that? I mean, other than
armor negating damage means that it ignores, if it's the actual attack, it ignores shields, but in this case, it's a rider effect. So it just means that protection does not apply. In this case, that means both the natural protection of the centaur's skin and the armor that they're wearing.
Okay, let's look at the centaurs really quick. And this one's the one that's zerking. So their normal is 9, correct?
I believe so. Current natural protection of 6. The final protection. You have to look at a non-berserk one.
There we go. So he's got a protection of 9, and this guy has... It's 13 damage, right?
Yep.
So it averaged 4 damage each, or how does that work?
So first of all, you have to account for the fact that this is piercing damage, which means it already ignores 20% of prots. But then you also have to account for the DRN. The DRN, the Dominus random number, that is the random number generation that is involved in calculating pretty much everything, usually favors positive numbers, because you can't heal from a way too negative DRN, but you do take more damage from a way positive DRN.
That's an interesting way of thinking of that, because if you go to 0 damage, if you have like all the rolls over, you're going to have a whole lot at 0, and then everything over 0, so the average should be higher than normal, right?
Exactly. It's not an average around 0. It depends on how much you are over. If you're just a specific number is 1 armor negating that damage, will on average get 2.7 extra damage. from the DRN. If this was, say, 10 armor negating damage, that number would be less.
Okay, now let's go into another point of this, which is the throne that he got. Now, you are MA Pan, and you have just got the Throne of Fire. How good of a throne is this?
This is frankly amazing. Not only do you get attack skill, which allows your white centaurs to repel more often, which is actually a really big deal. There are people that take attack skill blesses specifically for this purpose. But you also get fire access, and good fire access too. This gives you access to great forgeables like lightless lanterns. It also gives you access to good eventual battlefield spells. Obviously, Pan can't make use of many of the early ones, like, say, flaming arrows or anything like that. But they can summon fire elementals to supplement their troops. They can forge burning portals if they want to make counter thugs. All in all, a great pickup. One of the best drones Pan could get.
Let's see. Okay, so you said, like, light bill lanterns. What? Okay. And then, that's probably not that important. Okay, sorry. Okay, so after that, a ping of a throne. Okay, so what I want you to do is that we're going to go through each of these mages, and you're going to tell me what exactly you think that they're going to cast. And there's only two types of mages. The first one is this lore master.
Yep. Okay, so the lore masters. Now, you say you want to go through these one at a time, but I notice those are sages. Sages like going into communions because their astral one doesn't do a whole lot. They might off-script magic duel if you bring astral mages, but I'm not sure about that. I'd have to test.
I've never seen them do magic duel, but
it's unlikely.
Did you hear what happened to Balin with an S1 and a couple pearls?
Let me guess. Power of the Spheres into Peer Earl for Soulslay?
Yes. Soul slayed his commander during an expansion with a larger expansion party and routed the whole thing.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's certainly possible. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like, certainly don't... You already have an astral tree here, and there are enough sages to where they would communion up for something scary anyways. So you would have to worry about MR negates no matter what. I do notice that this is a Scaleria pinging this.
Yes.
Yeah. They can fairly easily win this throne as long as they pay attention to the fact that skeletons are mindless. Which means that they will not be targeted by Mindburn nor Soulslay. So if they bring just, say, 1 or 2 cultists to bring all those undead over and kill this throne, those cultists might just get sniped.
What's really interesting, dude, is that this is the second time that I've recorded this turn because we had some audio issues. But the similarities between, what you just said is one of those things that all experienced Dominion players seem to know. When you go into, when you go against, with skeletons, make sure to bring some ghouls, otherwise they'll soul slay your commanders.
Yeah.
Whereas this guy is not as experienced, but he's also playing very, very well. So I'm kind of interested to see how he does this because, talking to you and Sakane and to Joman and all these guys and they know this stuff, but it's something that you just, how did you learn that? How did you learn about Scaleria needing to bring ghouls?
I'm pretty sure I was told in the questions and strategy chat in the Dominion's Nexus, as it's now called. I've spent a lot of time when I first started playing here just like filing through a bunch of that. I was very like theory based at the start. I liked reading through a lot of it.
That's what I did too. It's really interesting, but now that you are more of an experienced player, when you have a question and there's something that you don't know, where do you go to? Do you go to the questions channels, or do you talk to a specific person, or do you figure it out yourself?
It depends on where the source of the problem is coming from. I'm fairly close to Nosy, So if it's regarding a specific game that we're both involved in, I'll sometimes just complain to him. That happens fairly often. It's the main way that we communicate now is I just start complaining to him about something that happens in the game.
That poor guy gets it from both of us then, because he's my source too.
Well, he's not.
Go ahead.
He's not so much my source as we both just sort of bullshit about the same sort of things. Well, he doesn't complain to me as much, but like we sometimes theorycraft together.
What's funny is that I'm playing the Utgard game where he's Atlantis, and I can't be. Hey, if you're playing against an Atlantis player, what would he throw against an Utgard? Well, Darnamos, probably Wailing Winds, and you might have to watch out for his Pretender dropping.
Oh god, Wailing Winds, that fucking spell. Me and Nosy actually became friends over a game that we were playing in together, where for 40 straight turns or something like that, we were just throwing armies with Wailing Winds against each other. That's pretty much all that was happening. Every single time, it ended up in a rout. It was ludicrous.
Do you know what I'm doing against Wailing Winds? I'm getting a bunch of Scrotty. What I had once was I had a Scrotty that cast Foul Vapors and then put himself into the Communion so that he wouldn't run away. And then I had about 20 Seth Kona for a Turbo Communion. And I put that in quotes because, turn 1 of Wailing Winds, half of them ran away. Turn 2, the other half ran away. But it was fine because I had so many guys on 4 little Scrotty. And they're pumping out skeletons. Of course we still lost. But it's freaking Wailing Winds. What do? You take your lumps, you try to deal as much damage as you can, and then you go to the boards and you complain about how Wailing Winds is overpowered. That's all you can do.
That's how it works. That's how it works. Yeah, that specific game, I was actually playing Utgard, and I was the one Wailing Winds Nosy who was playing Arco.
How do you get Wailing Winds on Utgard?
I found a lot of air sites and ended up empowering Wraith Lords.
Ah, okay, that's a good idea.
Because, of course, when Wraith Lords die, they just come back and you have another Wailing Winds caster. They're better than Liches in that regards because they respawn faster.
So moving on, because there's still Wailing Winds in this game, and I don't want to talk about Wailing Winds again ever. Okay, so this was a PD dump. It got its money's worth last turn, but how do you think this is in the grand scheme of things? I mean, it takes out 5 Edomites and a Sacred, and not only that, but Ashdod is on their heels. Are you okay taking a money, like a gold for gold loss? Theoretically, say that this didn't get its money worth last time. Are you okay doing that? Taking a money loss against a person who's losing, or do you still like being gold advantage even if you're winning against somebody? Does that make sense?
Obviously, it's better to how do I say this? Obviously, it's better to lose less gold. There's also something to say, however, for ending a threat early, because the longer that you are in a war, the longer that person is going to keep raiding you. And if you need to spend more money to make that happen faster, I'm fucking spending that money.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. You're spending gold not to be able to win faster so that you don't get, double teamed earlier.
You have to keep in mind that winning a war ends a economic burden on you. And you might be putting... Yeah.
Oh, sorry, keep going. No, go. Sorry, I'm changing stuff. Go ahead.
I've already lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
That's good. Sorry. Okay, so speaking of ending a threat, this looks like the end of a threat. So you're Vanheim. What do you do for Siege Chaff? Because this doesn't look... I mean, he's got like 100 siege strength here? If that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not even 100 siege strength.
And this is Middle Age, so he probably has to siege about 500 points worth. It matters less, of course, in the early age.
750.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah.
So what you want most, the ideal situation, if you're a nation without a lot of native siege strength, is you find a cave and you have earth so you can summon cave grubs. That is just the easiest way to deal with the situation. But you don't always have caves. The most generic solution is, well, of course, the most generic solution is just sit on the fort, but that's no fun. You could send in militia. That will end up costing you gold, upkeep, a whole lot of it. If you have some spare gems and you have the good research for it, there are troops that work well as siege chaff and as normal chaff. Something like Vine Ogres, they work well as both siege chaff and as general chaff. There are situations where if I'm really desperate to end the war early, I might even summon some less...
like less efficient ones?
Yeah, less efficient stuff. Things like packs of wolves or even animals. I haven't gone as far as summoning animals except in very desperate situations, but they're decent at sieging.
I've seen a lot of corpseman construction.
The problem with that is that it is very turn inefficient. Corpse constructs are great if you're casting I forgot what it's called, the like mass lightning clear raffle skies.
Okay.
But I don't like them much beyond that.
There's a couple items that give you really nice
yeah.
And not only that, but considering it's death air, does Van have that? Did they lose it is the question. Oh, some of them do on his cap onlys. Okay.
Yeah, it's not worth it on the cap onlys.
Yeah,
those have way more important things to do, especially since you mostly want to recruit the dwarves.
Yeah. So, okay, so he can't do that. It looks like he's going to have to use just standard. It looks like he's got a bunch of crossbows coming up. But even with that, I'm guessing it's going to take 3 or 4 turns.
Yeah, the crossbows certainly help. There is something to say for the fact that he is a Fanine. He's very scary. If people are going to be attacking him, they'll take some time to, like, organize the coalition just due to sheer momentum. Like, coalitions usually take a few turns to form just because people are a bit reluctant. But it is something he does have to worry about. Elves are better on the offensive than the defensive.
Where's the spell that gets a whole bunch of 10? It's 10.
The giant eagles?
The birds. Yeah, or the bird. Yeah,
the Call of the Wind, I think.
Yeah, where is that?
Also in Conjuration?
Is it in Conjuration? I'm not seeing. We might not have it.
I see summon Great Eagles, but I don't see Call the Wind.
I bet it's one of the spells that is gone. What do you think of that for Siege Chaff?
Call the Wind, I think, works. I'm not entirely sure how much the Hawks give, but they are one of the more efficient ways to get Siege Chaff quickly with air.
So I guess it's just an option. It's really interesting because I think that one of the things that separates a good player from a great player is their ability to take forts efficiently and quickly.
Yeah.
And it's one thing that I think I have as a weakness as a player is that I have a hard time balancing a fighting army and an army that can crack a fort without losing that army during the fight.
Yeah. This is actually one of the reasons. Do you mind if I go on a small tangent about siege?
Yeah, go for it, dude.
This is one of the reasons that I absolutely adore the nation of Merverni. They are very good at creating a lot of threats that are each able to threaten a fort. It is very easy for them to throw out 4 armies, and if you don't answer one of them immediately, they will take one of your forts. They'll just take one of your forts.
I think it's a good point. Is that it's so important to be able to do that, especially look at Vanheim. If you want to attack that, he's got 3 monster forts there, and while you're sieging this down, he's being an elf.
Yeah.
And so being able to crack these is a very big, and like you said, like Marverni has it because of their free spawn. Well, Scalaria has it because of their free spawn. You have Erebor who has it because of it, and Oh, and pandas as well, because they've got the satyr.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one thing that makes players that are new like pre-spawn so much is that it makes
Mm-hmm.
a harder concept or a harder strategy for new players, and it gives you kind of that little, booster chair.
Yeah, you'll also notice that some of the, most of, I think maybe even Ashdod, I think, has good siege draft, but I think the powerhouses of MA all have good ways of dealing with forts.
Do they have? I'm not sure.
Or did I lose their horns in Middle Age?
Yeah, I think they lost their foreign because they had the really good ones back in EA.
Yeah,
no,
the
here you
Enkidu
go,
slaves
dude.
as well.
7 gold for one
Yeah,
siege strength
7
is
gold
really good.
for a human slave.
Yeah, two gold per turn for upkeep. I think I can afford that.
Granted, the Hinnom had it even better. There was while there was a siege strength guy that they had, the Hornblower, the Enkidu slaves were actually more efficient. Just because they were so cheap and I had high strength.
They need to change
Hornblowers
the
are also, yeah, the Hornblower needs to become either more useful in general or have a massive buff in its siege strength, for otherwise people will just recruit Enkidu slaves.
Well, they're supposed to be like it's supposed to be the Walls of Jericho guys, the ones that walk around and literally knock down a wall with their horns, and you're sitting there going, "Yay, 10 siege strength!" Like,
yeah,
that's not that great. I think it might even be 5. Okay, so
they get 5 bonus on top of the.
Okay, so it's 7 total. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Okay, so we did that one, and we got an arena next turn. Oh, I'm sorry. Crap. Did you see that, dude?
I saw it shortly.
Okay.
I didn't see how it ended.
Okay, that's good.
So is this better arena?
Let
me ask you.
I don't remember. Okay.
Because that massively influences on whether or not I'm going to be berating the own player.
Okay, so
it's better.
Was that saying?
Oh.
No, go ahead.
The own player is sending a hero here, and if this is not better arena, there is no way it is worth sending a hero in.
Let's hit that point first. Let's see what happens. And yeah, close your eyes. The Banner of the Northern Star. It's the better arena from that Lucid put together, I think.
Yeah. In that case, it can be worth it.
Let me go check this real quick.
I would still be hesitant if it was a really good hero, but if it was just a hero that was a slightly better thug, sure.
I'm not. Yeah, I can't find the. So who do you think would win this? Did you see who won?
I did not see who won.
Okay. Let me look and see. Thematic balanced arena. So balanced arena is in this one. Did you hear what happened to Nosy with balanced arena?
I was the one that did it.
Okay. So really quick. Okay. So I think we know who's gonna win this one right here.
Yeah, it was fairly obvious from the start. Look at the stats on that girl. Plus, she had the sprites.
Yeah, she's absolutely amazing. So okay. So, win for Ulm, Gay Rot, and he gets a Banner of the Northern Stars in order to boost all of his S mages. Both of them.
Very useful.
Okay, so there is currently a bug in Better Arena, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so can you explain to the story what happened to poor Nosy?
So what happened to poor Nosy is he was playing as Hinnom and he was fighting a Therados. He was using Wavebreaker, I believe it was called, to have some of his Melkarts go underwater to fight Therados. The problem was, I won the arena, and with it I won a Wavebreaker. Guess where that Wavebreaker came from?
Now, from what I hear, it's not just that Wavebreaker. It takes every Wavebreaker in the game.
Really?
And it takes them all out, and then the winner gets the only one. That's because somebody else said that they were lost one as well. I don't know though because I wasn't in the game. But all I know is that Wavebreaker was giving water breathing to a super combatant that was underwater, and all of a sudden said super combatant was lacking something important in life. You know, I gotta say that is a pretty ingenious way of killing a super combatant.
I didn't even try. It was just some random Gutiwada that I sent out with a dream. Ended up that dream was accomplished, I suppose.
Joman, can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so right now JoBrandon was having some trouble with his audio, so we're talking through Skype. So you have to pretend like you can actually hear him. But we're wrapping up this episode anyways. In fact, let's do that real quick. We don't got anything else to this. So, Joe, I really appreciate you joining with us today. It was wonderful to get another perspective on an episode that we already did, and I really appreciate being able to talk to so many different people in the Dominions community and to get their different opinions on everything. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely no problem.
Okay, well, then I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for joining. Have a good one. Bye.